Welcome back everyone. We have another recipe that's perfect for the cool autumn weather. This week, I'm showing you how to make vegan Vietnamese coffee cinnamon rolls. You can find all of our measurements in the video description. Okay, let's get started. First, let's prepare our wet ingredients. Pour water and oat milk into a bowl, then microwave it until it's warm to the touch, but not hot. It's important that your mixture isn't too hot, otherwise the yeast that you'll be putting in will die. We always go with Oatly for our milk because it has the best creamy texture and flavor. Not sponsored by the way, but I wish. My sister Quiana adapted her original cinnamon roll recipe to make it vegan, so huge shout out to her. Next, add in your sugar and yeast packet and stir it all together until the yeast is dissolved. We used active dry yeast for this video, but you can substitute it with a packet of instant yeast. Both will work for this recipe. Let the yeast mixture sit until bubbles or foam start to form at the top. This should take around 5 minutes. If the yeast doesn't activate, this means that your wet mixture probably cooled down after you added in the sugar. Try putting your bowl in a warm water bath to activate the yeast, or your yeast could be dead. In that case, start over with new yeast. Add in melted butter and oil to your yeast mixture and stir it until everything is incorporated. If you like what you're seeing so far, give our video a thumbs up. It really means a lot. And if you haven't already, subscribe to our channel and follow us on Instagram for weekly vegan recipes. Let's move on to our dry ingredients. In a large mixing bowl, combine bread flour, cornstarch, and salt. We're using bread flour because it has a higher gluten content, which will give our dough more structure. This means taller and fluffier cinnamon rolls. Pour your wet mixture into the bowl and mix everything until your liquids fully absorb into the dry ingredients. I used a whisk here, but you should use a spatula or wooden spoon. Your dough will be sticky, so combining with a spatula will make dough removal a lot easier compared to the whisk. Beat the dough in a stand mixer on medium-high speed until you can form it into a smooth, cohesive ball. This should take around 10 minutes. Depending on the climate, you might need to add more water or flour to get the right consistency. You can also knead the dough by hand, but it will definitely be an arm workout. Your dough will take a while to come together, but trust the process. You'll know that the dough is done when you can pull the dough out of the bowl in one piece and form it into a ball. Once you've taken it out, place it into an oiled bowl and spread more oil on top of the dough after you've placed it in. I used cooking spray for both the bowl and the dough because it's super convenient. Cover the dough in plastic wrap and let the dough proof in a warm area until it's doubled in size. Let's make our cinnamon roll filling. Soften some plant butter with a fork. This is easier when your butter has already been sitting out for a few minutes. We've used both Earth Balance and Miyoko's for our butter. Both taste good, but Earth Balance is definitely a more cost-effective option. For our spices, we'll be combining brown sugar and cinnamon in a small bowl. It looks like a lot of brown sugar because, well, it is. I like my cinnamon rolls generously filled. A dark brown sugar will give you more of the molasses flavor, but feel free to use regular brown sugar as well. Either one will work. Remove your dough from its bowl and place it onto a large cutting board. Hopefully it's risen and puffy. Coat a rolling pin with flour and begin rolling your dough out into a rectangular shape. I used parchment paper at first because I didn't want the dough to stick to my cutting board, but that didn't work because I couldn't get enough grip to actually flatten out the dough. Make sure to put an even amount of pressure onto the rolling pin so that you can get an even consistency. Also, quick disclaimer, this was the first time I ever used a rolling pin in my entire life, and I had my sister behind the camera literally telling me what to do. Thanks, Quiana. Spread out a piece of parchment paper on top of the dough and flip the entire cutting board over. Now carefully peel off the dough from the cutting board. I definitely would not have been able to do this on my own. Quiana is baking queen. Using your bare hands, spread the softened butter all over the dough, like you're rubbing on lotion. I know it's weird, but it feels too similar. This should be obvious, but please wash your hands before doing any of this. Make sure you spread it all the way to the edges to create a nice base for the cinnamon to stick to. Next, sprinkle your brown sugar cinnamon mixture on top of the butter. Spread it around with your hands and pat down the granules. Make sure to cover up any bare spots because we want the sugary flavor in every bite. Also, flatten out any lumps you see. You don't have to use all the cinnamon sugar, but I highly recommend that you do because it tastes so good with the roll. Once you're done with the cinnamon sugar, use the parchment paper to tightly roll your dough up into a long cylinder. Be careful not to press down on it too much. Of course, my sister taught me how to do this as well because she's good at everything. Okay, here's the secret to cute cinnamon rolls. We use floss to cut the dough. Floss doesn't seem to have a place in the kitchen, but it works so well for cutting dough. You basically pull a long section of floss and wrap it around the bottom of the dough, then crisscross the floss and quickly pull to get a clean cut. So efficient. Make sure that your dough stays rolled up while you're doing this, because it could loosen up as you're handling the dough. Ideally, each slice should be 1 inch thick. Place the slices into a baking pan and cover it with a towel or plastic wrap. Let it proof for another 30 minutes so we can get some extra fluffiness. Preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit and bake your rolls until they are a light golden brown. This should take about 20 to 25 minutes. Check your rolls around the 20-minute mark because this can vary from oven to oven. Let's move on to the Vietnamese coffee glaze. This is my favorite part. Fill a coffee phin with your Vietnamese coffee grounds and screw in the filter. The phin, also known as phin café, is a Vietnamese coffee filter that allows the grounds to brew and dispense at a slow drip. Vietnamese coffee has a distinct flavor because it's made using Robusta beans and has chicory infused throughout the grounds. Next, pour oat milk into a heat-safe glass. Pour some hot water into the phin and cover it with a lid. After the first round of hot water filters through, fill it with water a second time and repeat the process. Watch how the coffee drips onto the top of the creamy oat milk. In a small bowl, sift in some powdered sugar. It looks like a lot, but it will all get incorporated into the coffee. Make sure you sift the flour so that you get a smooth glaze. Slowly add in your Vietnamese coffee 1 tablespoon at a time and mix it continuously until you have a thick, gooey glaze. I used about 3 or 4 tablespoons of coffee. Remember that a little bit of coffee goes a long way, so add in only what you need, otherwise your glaze will be too runny. You definitely won't be using it all in the glaze, so just save the rest to drink alongside the cinnamon rolls. Stir it vigorously until you have a well-incorporated glaze. Make sure there are no sugar lumps or dry spots. Once you have an incorporated mixture, stir in some melted plant butter. You should now have a thick but pourable glaze. And that's it. Once your cinnamon rolls have cooled down a bit, pour the glaze all over the rolls. Make sure your rolls aren't too hot, otherwise your glaze will become runny once it hits the roll. If you plan on saving them for later, I highly recommend pouring all of the glaze over the buns to really seal in the moisture. They taste great days later. Just pop them in the microwave for 15 to 20 seconds. I learned so much about Vietnamese coffee from working on this recipe. The flavor from the coffee is as rich as the culture it came from. I'm so glad I got a chance to share a part of my heritage with everyone. I hope that I was able to show you that vegan food shouldn't be boring. See you next time.